Oh my God, you must have heard the news by now. It's the biggest whistleblower adjacent news of the year. You'd have to be living under a rock to have missed this. It's created quite the controversy. Supreme Court allows copyright claim tied to rapper Flo Rida track to proceed. Yes! Yeah, you know how it goes. I don't actually think the track related to the court case is Whistle. The song is actually the much less celebrated, yet equally as visionary, In the Air feat the world's least overrated musician, will.i.am, and holy shit, will.i.am, and his name's William. But you know what else is making me throw my hands in the air? Julian Assange is back home. You know what that means? It means he's finally on Australian territory, which means that we can finally put him on trial for his actual crime.
Ah! What's going on here?
I think you know.
Is that Julian Assange?
Yes, it is. Hello.
Look at his hair. Everyone knows it's white. This isn't Assange, it's some loser with lowlights.
Not making songs as good as Flo Rida! Although he can put in his defence that he's still miles above fucking will.i.am. But to be fair, if we did charge him with a crime, it would open up a whole bunch of issues with the First Amendment of Australia's Constitution. Everyone has the right to have mid-flow that doesn't hit as hard as any song on Only One Flow, Part 1. Sorry, but how good is this album cover? No way. Flo Rida. And he's from Florida. Holy fuck! Charging Assange would probably violate our Second Amendment as well. Australians must only produce awful rap music, with the two exceptions, of course, being Cursor and how could we forget? In all seriousness, what good news. It made me smile so much seeing Kevin Rudd escort Julian Assange to court and then do his charter flight back home to Australia. Partly because he's innocent, exposing war crimes in the US and blah, 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 blah. But mostly because seeing those two silver foxes being celebrated remind me of the golden age of humanity, the very, very, very early 2010s. What a time to be alive. Sorry to get a Bill Maher on you, but those were the days back when TikTok was on the radio, not your phone. Back when woke meant, you know, awake. Till halfway through 2010, some bitter woman backed by the US State Department had to ruin it all. And yeah, before you start in the comments, calm down. It's a joke. Well, not really, actually. It took 14 years, but the boys are back on top. Take that, CIA and women. Anyway, sorry to go all Bill Maher on you again, but I was right. I did a video 2 years ago imploring Scott Morrison to pick up the phone and witch Biden about Assange. Because that video wasn't addressed to Scott Morrison, I wasn't appealing to any deep moral centre here. I was just pointing out that getting him home would be a really decent PR boom. Now, let me watch myself from 2 years ago talk and smugly nod afterwards. You strike me as a man who cares about his legacy. Now, if John Howard is remembered fondly for one thing, it's certainly not lying about the GST, it's banning guns. And I don't think that was that difficult or impressive, but neither should be freeing an Australian who hasn't committed any crimes, who is locked up by countries we're allied with. So come on, Scott, pick up the phone and do it. You will be remembered for that. Actually, that really needs some canned applause for that to work, so let's give that a go. Just when Albo was flailing in the polls, he manages to pull off an iconic move like this. Now look, I don't know how much this will have an effect on public sentiment in Australia, but I can say, if we still had old-timey shopping districts like the Shoes District, the Pants District, the Hats District, etc., if inside that Hats District there was a district that sold exclusively fedoras, the Fedora District, if the Fedora District was in a marginal electorate, Albanese would have that electorate on lock. Fuck indie sleaze, we gotta bring back the Reddit atheism swag of 2010 as well. Bring back the black shirt, the red tie combo, and a fedora in for good measure. I don't know about the electoral impact, but poll after poll shows that a clear majority of Australians support Assange. So at the very least, bringing him home after 14 years of inaction from successive governments is an iconic move that will be part of Albanese and Kevin Rudd's legacy. And we should appreciate that. A little tiny piece of Australian sovereignty given back to us after spending his entire post-politics career attempting to feign off nuclear war. He frees Assange. I didn't think it was possible to like K-Rudd anymore. Think about that in comparison to what Gillard's doing now. Breaking her long silence to appear in a propaganda movie for Israel's war on Gaza.
I am, you are, we are Australians, and really, full stop, that's it.
Oh, 2 foreign policy W's in the same month. So I'm grateful to Albanese and Rudd for this. Assange being freed possibly wouldn't have happened under different Labor leadership, and it would certainly never, ever happen under the Liberals, who not only earlier this year opposed a parliamentary motion on the UK and USA to free Assange, but had a go at Albanese for having a phone call with him once he was freed. They're like the Japanese guy that was still fighting the war in the jungles of the Philippines 20 years on. Dude, the empire's moved on. Come out. In fact, fuck all these legends getting slammed by losers for perfect phone calls. And if you're a psycho that doesn't get any glee from this innocent man being released from prison, maybe this will cheer you up. It's pissed off all the worst and coincidentally physically ugliest people in Australia. Starting with a man who I won't name today because he's such an attention seeker. I worry that if he's watching this video in public, he'll come himself from just his name being mentioned by a B-grade YouTuber, and then he'll get arrested for public indecency and pretend that it was because he was fighting for the freedom of Israelis or Ukrainians or whatever the preferred victim is of the US State Department that week. But I'll give you a clue as to who he is. He looks like the brain-damaged penguin from Madagascar, and his name kind of rhymes with "you have poo." Okay, it's too mean to deny him his 3 seconds of fame. It's professional lol cow Drew Pavlou. To give you an idea of the type of guy he is, he's the type of guy that would show up at Langley, Virginia and demand the CIA restart the illegal experimental human mind control program, MKUltra. He tweeted, "Julian Assange is evil, and real Australians hate Julian Assange." Oh yeah, the real true blues, Drew and the American deep state. Well done, mate. You finally said something so stupid that I'm going to take the bait. What a nasty little man you are, Drew. He just got out of prison. Sometimes, if you have nothing nice to say, you probably shouldn't say anything at all. Tubby. Drew does demonstrate succinctly the 2 main camps Assange haters fall in. Jealous attention whores who wish they too could become celebrated martyrs, and idiots who profess their love of liberal democracy by advocating for the unrelenting and brutal persecution of a man for his crimes of exercising the rights ostensibly afforded to him by liberal democracies. But now that I think about it, most journalists also fall into both camps at the same time, which if nothing else is also an impressive accomplishment. It really does bring me to probably the dumbest part of the public discourse surrounding Assange's release, the never-ending question, is Julian Assange a journalist? Like that's some insane bar to clear. Seriously, journalists have the highest opinion of themselves. They act like being adorned with the label of journalist is akin to a fucking Purple Heart, when most of them are commentators. They do less work than podcasters. They're comedians watching react videos without having to make any jokes, using the guise of not making any jokes of, that actually makes me better than comedians because I'm serious. You're not. You're just fucking lazy. Even what passes for investigative journalism nowadays, it's just sitting ugly social rejects on a couch, plonking a mic in front of them and letting them externalize their own psychic insecurities onto something, be it an institution or person, that now becomes a symbol of that psychic insecurity. And then the journalists just pretend that that's a broader issue with society as a whole. What Julian Assange did is far more noble and consequential than anything 99% of people who call themselves journalists will ever achieve. Case in point, Shari Markson. No one questions if she's a journalist, despite the biggest story she's ever broken was being herself, because before I watched her show, I didn't know it was possible for a melting 40-year-old to still carry their bitchy high school demeanour into their professional life.
Well, now let's turn to Julian Assange, who is today being celebrated by the unions, the Greens and the Teals as a hero journalist, when in reality, he's an irresponsible traitor who risked the lives of American sources working in high-risk war zones and oppressive regimes.
American sources? Shari, Julian's not American. How can he be a traitor to a country that isn't his? That's a bit of a Freudian slip, because it really does show that Sky News' supposed voice for the everyday Aussie is, as proven over and over, far more loyal to the USA, or in your case, Shari, specifically Israel, than the country you're fucking broadcasting from.
There's no question Assange broke the law, but today he was released from prison in a plea deal done with the US.
Yeah, and there's no question that you're breaking the law as you speak. In Turkmenistan, where they ban makeup. You want to start the whole, you should be convicted for crimes you committed from other countries when you weren't in that country? Because if that's the case, Shari's going to be away for a long time. She's 3 broadcasts away from this. Just as a warning for the next clip, no, your life hasn't been trapped in a 3-second loop like in the movie Endless. These were the visuals they used.
He had been charged with conspiracy to obtain and disclose national defence information after publishing troves of classified national security documents that related to the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. That was back in 2010.
Look, it's like being this man.
What in the hell? But I went up the stairs, I'm sure.
They've done it. Out of the frying pan and into the fire. They've put Assange into an even worse punishment. Look, he's still going.
There was no attempt by Assange to sift through the documents to protect the identities of sources.
See?
Servicemen and women who were already risking their lives for the sake of our collective national security. And it's this that separates Assange from the occupation I love, journalism.
And with that, we get to the most tiresome, lazy lie about Assange. He didn't redact and therefore put lives at risk. Putting aside the fact that even the US court admitted that there was no harm caused by his work, it is just a lie. An endlessly repeated lie. My lawyer Mark Davis, who for some reason just appears in history whenever something big happens. Here he was with Assange in 2010 before the big WikiLeaks release. There he was at Lincoln's assassination. There he is with the invention of the wheel. And of course Roswell in 1947. Although he doesn't like to talk about that one. So quickly moving on. Mark is always pointing out to very little success that Assange redacted 10,000 names. In this speech from last year, Mark preemptively addresses Shari's beyond tired point, or in his words, endlessly recycled lie. But much like Julian Assange's incarceration, this video is way too long. But Assange was abandoned by pretty much every mainstream journo in this country, so I can imagine he's got an enemies list longer than Hamish Blake, and Americans wouldn't know that reference, but he's got to be the only Australian more controversial than Assange. Fact. What I'm getting at is it could be fun to dissect more of the coverage surrounding his release, but for that, you're going to have to join my Patreon and vote for it. We'll have another poll next week, just working on your last suggestion now. Wow, look at the variety. Yep, that's right, join my Patreon, take that money you were going to give to Assange's charter jet back and give it to me. After all, having to read wine mum opinion pieces giving more weight to criticisms of character traits of the man who released the collateral murder video than the actual collateral murder video is much more intolerable than 14 years of incarceration.